my name is Aleysha Gormley, and I'm doing the health and wellbeing aspect of getting your mojo back. So let's set Re20 again. I just want to share a little bit about my background so that you can understand more about my perspective and where I'm coming from. And basically my training and my education has been in the Eastern philosophies. So I dedicated 7 years of my life living like a monk, and I'm not recommending that to everybody, but it was a fantastic investment of time and energy and focus. And during that time, I learnt a lot about myself, obviously, but it also gave me a huge foundation about other people and life in general. So that foundation has carried me through with a lot of challenges and crises in my life. And so I believe that now particularly is a great time to share a lot of that insight for people. I feel that they're really looking for something more in their life for themselves and for others. So I feel that my job is to reconnect a little bit of the ancient wisdom into our modern life. I mean, obviously I'm not living like a monk anymore, but I have used a lot of what I gained and that insight that I gained in my modern living. And I believe that it's applicable and very easy to do for everyone. So yes, I want to make a point again that I think a lot of people are actually looking for something more and they're needing something more. So even though we may have ticked a lot of boxes in our life, especially after crisis like what we've just been through, people are really understanding that there is more to life and our priorities do change as time goes on. So I must admit too, I'm a bit of an eternal optimist. I do believe that no matter what life throws at us, there is always something to be grateful for. And I know that for myself, that's been a huge and valuable way of looking at things. Now, in marrying my background with the Eastern philosophies, I also have an associate degree in clinical science, and I have worked extensively in mental health areas, and that's in crisis and rehabilitation. So that's no longer something that I'm doing, but I do appreciate that our mental health is a huge priority, especially right now. So the highlights of today's session, I'm going to ask and invite you to shift your perspective. So I do come from a bit of an out-of-the-box type of environment, and I am going to invite you to shift your perspective as well, understanding that connecting to your deeper essence of self is, in actual fact, a connection to your well-being, to how you actually live your life. So the connection requires you to be more present. And that in itself is very simple, but not always easy. So being fully present, I feel, is absolutely accessible for everybody. And it's something that is, I believe, a superpower, because when we're more present, we're more able to do things in a much more functional and proactive way. So the topics I'm going to briefly touch on in the presentation today are making sure that your health and your well-being are a priority, the benefits of learning how to relax at will, balance action with awareness and well-being, and learn how to get in the zone. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well, and how being in the zone benefits your business and your general health all up. Being present in your day is a superpower. So that's the topics that we're going to touch on. Now, two of the, we've got a little page, can't move my page, but I'll keep going. One of the charts that I wanted to show you was a well-being chart and a health chart. And I'll just see if I can click this on. No. Anyway, so the wellbeing chart is a chart that has got the 4 main pillars of health. Oh, thanks, Ash. Ash is going to quickly have a look at that for me. I'll keep going though. So the wellbeing chart is got the 4 main pillars of health, which is physical, mental, emotional, and work health. And each of those areas are very interlinked and very necessary to look after in our general health. So underlying all that thank you, Ash, very much. There we go. We've got it. So underlying all those 4 health pillars are the spiritual and wellbeing base. It's a foundation. And it's a foundation because it underlines all aspects of our human experience. So moving a little bit further on, each of those health areas, mental, physical, emotional, and work health, have all got interlinked parts that we need to look at. And it's important to recognise that the state of each of these areas, when they're in balance and we've got them under wraps, it's our natural state. So our well-being state is actually our natural state. Just really quickly looking at mental health for a start. So some of these things that I've lifted down obviously are showing when we're in a good mental health state. So good sleep is required for good mental health, positive mindset, and we understand that how we think certainly impacts how we live our life. Growth mindset is very similar to a positive mindset, except it means that you are looking at developing yourself more. So you're not saying to yourself, I can't do that. You're saying, I can't do that yet. The mind is an instrument. Now, this is one area that I feel, is worth looking into more, because a lot of people don't actually recognize that they have the control, they have the ability to control their mind rather than it control them. And this is where a lot of people are unfortunately falling down a little bit. Now, a couple of the other things I've got here are nature, which is a huge area for mental health, and in other areas as well that often gets overlooked. So when we're out in nature and we can reconnect with nature, that's a great impacting way of getting better mental health. In actual fact, I've got a little bit of research here from the University of Minnesota. It says that being in nature increases our physical and emotional well-being, and it reduces blood pressure, heart rate, muscle tension, and production of the stress hormone. So that's just being in nature. The breath, which we will be touching on later in the presentation today, is another key element in helping our mind and body relax, and creativity. So creativity is another space when we connect to it well, that we move out of our thinking mind and into a different part of our brain where we're starting to relax and feel a little bit more in our mojo state, in our well-being state. Physical health obviously goes into huge research, and everybody knows that moving our body physically and eating well is essential in keeping our optimal energy up. So it's very important that we counter into having our physical health being on track. Sleep again, nature, breath, and keeping our strength as well. So I'm only briefly touching on these because I want to interlink it a little bit more with a deeper essence of ourself. The emotional health is often overlooked as well. So the social connection, that's with family and friends and companionship. It's really important that we have that in our lives. It's very, we feel good, obviously. It's a feel-good hormone that is released when we have people in our lives that are good in and love us for who we are. And it's also that sense of belonging. So again, nature and creativity come into that as well. So our emotional health is something that, especially with the COVID, that not having access to our loved ones does have an effect on how we feel and think. And then of course the work health. When we're in our mojo state, our work health is purposeful. It's financially gaining when we've got things running smoothly. It's a service to others. So a lot of people find that that can be very purposeful as well. And there's a space for creativity in our workspace, which is important. The social connection again, and it's intellectually rewarding. So I want to just say that all of those things are very important, and they're absolutely an essential part of being in health. But the underlying part of that is also in our well-being state. So when we have those parts working well, it connects us to a sense of well-being. And when we're looking at well-being, I've got a list of descriptive words here that explain how that feels. Now, coming back to this is really important because we do those things mostly from an actionable space. It's things that we do. So exercise, diet, having social connection, good sleep. Those are things that we can take action on, and it gives us a sense of well-being. But there's also a space that is underneath how we feel that is more a spiritual connection. And that's when we're actually in a mojo state. So being in flow or being in a zone. Some people can relate to that when they're running or swimming. Being in stillness, being connected. And this is not just to other people, but connected to a sense of self. And having awareness and being conscious and present. So all of these parts are interlinked again, or the well-being words describe that state. So well-being words are joy, gratitude, fulfillment, satisfaction, contentment, peace, clarity, insight, intuition, inspiration, and empowerment. So they all describe very well how our mojo state feels, or how we feel when we're in flow, or how we feel when we're in the zone. And we all want that more in our life. We all want that in our business, because we know when we're in that state, things flow easily and well, and our business can flourish. That's the whole idea. So underneath that is the bigger words that most of us would probably not like to talk about too often, because they often have a charge to it that people want to disassociate from. But consciousness, beingness, so we're human beings, our true self or core self, universe, power source, God, higher source, creator, whatever it is that you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. I call it it and that a lot. But basically that's where our power source is. That's when we actually connect into something and it rejuvenates ourselves. So when we have time out and go on holidays, we're actually tapping into a lot of that. So all elements of health and well-being are interlinked. We can reconnect to our natural state from within and from without. So as I mentioned, the mental, physical, emotional, and work health, a lot of those tend to be when we're in an actionable state. We're doing things. And I think the disbalance has happened now when we're doing things without being connected to something more. So our being state. And the truth is that we can do, the idea is to marry them both and to be in both at the same time. And we can connect to that beingness state from the inside out. And obviously with a lot of what's happened in COVID, people were challenged with doing that. They were in isolation, especially with people that didn't have internet and weren't able to access Zoom, to have that social connection. We were no longer in our workspaces. We were no longer possibly able to do our normal physical exercise regimes. So having taken those away, what were we left with? And this is where I feel a lot of people would benefit if they reconnected from the inside out. So balancing the action with awareness and being is our optimal mojo state. And that's what we're hoping to gain a little more of today. So the next picture, I think, says it all. I'm sure you've probably seen this fly around social media. But essentially, I think we can all relate. The being present is the dog. He's just there. He's just there. He's not thinking about anything. He's not processing anything. But the poor fellow on the left, he's, you know, obviously in his head, thinking too much in the future, too much in the past, and not being where he is. So I think a lot of the affliction that we have in today's society is that we're in our head too much and we're not actually being in the space we need to be. The other picture that comes to mind actually is at 2 o'clock in the morning, lying in bed, and you know, you're like this and you're thinking too much in your head and you can't actually get to sleep. And here's the thing, what happens in our head actually has an effect on our physical being. So if we're thinking stressful thoughts and then uptight thoughts, that actually releases stress hormones. But the reality is everything's very quiet, everything's very calm. Your partner's probably drooling on the pillow, fast asleep. So that's the dog state, you know, that's the being state. So if we can connect to that being state more often, it will help us to be able to do that when we're lying in our bed at 2 o'clock in the morning overthinking. So we've got 2020's reset, get your mojo back. This is what we're hoping. We're going to have it. So make sure that your health and well-being are a priority is absolutely imperative. Getting your mojo requires you to be relaxed, confident, content, and feeling positive about moving forward. This means putting your well-being first as a priority. So success happens when you happen. And without you plugging in and looking after yourself, things will start to unravel. And like the hostess does on the plane, she says to you, if the plane's going to crash, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first before anyone else. And it's exactly the same in your life. So making sure that taking the time to go for that walk or sit in meditation or whatever it is for you that connects you back to your well-being state is first on the priority list. The ancient wisdom for modern living. So when we look at ancient wisdom, people often think of meditation, and yes, it's a huge beneficial process. I do want to debunk the idea that you have to do 20 minutes a day. It's preferable, but it's not necessary to start with. We have to work with where we're at. But I do want to point out the benefits of the practice of meditation. So the wellbeing subjects now are the health and wellbeing subjects are shifting more into wellbeing for good reason, because meditation and mindfulness are becoming a huge area of growth because people are recognizing how beneficial it is in the long term for many different areas. Companies such as Google, Nike, Apple, and several 500 Forbes organizations have taken to mindfulness practices as, and I quote, it significantly increases productivity and the well-being of employees. Now let's just take Google. Google's a great example, actually. It's a company that thinks outside the box. It's a company that's ethos is based on thinking outside the box. And to do that, they require their employees to be in their most optimal mojo state. They want the best out of their employees. They've chosen these people because they also think outside the box. So Google set up their company to have nap pods and chefs that provide organic food, morning, lunch, and dinner. The whole environment is about keeping their employees relaxed, confident, peaceful and calm. And they also have courses aimed at meditation and mindfulness. So Google's most popular course is a course called Search Inside Yourself. So there's bringing ancient wisdom into modern living. And it's good if we look at some of the higher ranking companies, take a leaf out of their cap because they're already seeing how that's beneficial not just in their own company, but for their employees. Then the simplest way to become more present is, the simplest way of becoming more in your mojo state is to be more present, very simply. Not always easy sometimes. So according to the Harvard studies, meditation, and I quote, literally changes the functioning of the brain and decreases activity in parts of the brain that are responsible for the fight or flight and knee-jerk reactions. So just take that in its own right. Not having knee-jerk reactions to a situation and not having a stress response, a fight or flight response. And it also increases activity in the part of the brain responsible for our executive functioning. So that's obviously making better choices. Very, very important. Now, I've just got a little quote from Buddha here. The secret of health, both for mind and body, is not to mourn for the past, nor worry about the future, but to live the present moment wisely and earnestly. So just right now, how present are you? We're flying off a little bit. We're probably checking our emails on our phones. And that's the point. So obviously, the more present we are, the more engaged we are with where we are. We're going to be the dog, right? We're picturing the dog right now. The more beneficial our productivity is, even when you're doing nothing. Even when you're doing nothing. So just keeping it simple. That's the whole point, is keep it simple. And I've just put it on to the next slide here. This is also parts of practicing meditation, but remembering meditation in your day is just being more present. In actual fact, when I lived that monastic life, our job during the day was to be as plugged in as possible. So our meditation wasn't just about sitting on the mat for 20 days. It was imperative. It was actually required of us to be meditative during our day. That means being like the dog, being as present as possible. And you've probably seen, little clips or something of monks sitting there mindfully eating their lunch. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to kind of go, I can't talk right now, I'm mindful eating my lunch. It just simply means that you're aware that you're eating your lunch. Not thinking, though, there's the trick as well, not to analyse or over-analyse being there. So the practice of becoming more present helps to deepen your sense of self. So it connects you to something deeper than just our mind stuff. It becomes more intuitive. So everyone's heard of following your gut feeling. And, great business people like Richard Branson and Steve Jobs, they've overtly said they actually follow their gut. They look at the research, but they follow their gut as well. Albert Einstein, I've got a quote from him. This is a great quote to say, I believe in intuition and inspiration. So that's that mojo state. At times I feel certain I am right while not knowing the reason. So that's that gut feeling. You've got a hunch. The ability to direct the thoughts of the mind. So again, this is coming back to you are more than just your mind's thoughts. If you've got the ability to connect to something more, then you've got the ability to direct where your mind goes and also not be caught in it so much. That's when we are that man, when we're thinking way too much. We gain a better perspective and understanding. And that's just not just for ourselves, getting a better perspective of ourselves and understanding ourselves, but it also means for others around us. And we have more moments of creativity and inspiration. So a little bit like Einstein there says as well, he's been inspired by something. It reduces stress levels, overthinking, and being overwhelmed. It increases feelings of well-being, calm, balance, gratefulness, and groundedness. So I'll just quickly show this one. Find your centre. The poor donut's having a rough time. And it just means remember to have fun. I mean, our mojo state is to be enjoyed. We're meant to be having a lot of fun with this life. So this is a little bit more about being in the zone. So there is a lot of the ancient teachings, obviously, have been talking about this for thousands of years. Great leaders and philosophers and thinkers have often expressed experience of inspired activity and insight that are beyond the mind. And people that come to my mind are people like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela and Gandhi. They've all been inspired by something bigger. In sports psychology, it's called being in the zone. So it's actually, there's papers written on this. There's the references at the back of the presentation. And we all have moments of being in the zone. So it's when we're so engulfed by something, we're completely in an activity or doing something that we love. Time flies by and often we feel great about it. There's been a successful outcome or it just feels really satisfying and really fulfilling. That's being in the zone. And in the elite athlete world, it's the training of body and the training of mind to connect together so that when they're in their utmost performance, they move into a different state of being in the zone. So that's how they've got to that state. Training of body and mind, being in the zone, similar to what I had done. I trained in body and mind for a deeper understanding. But the problem was for athletes is that it comes and goes. They can't really predict when they're going to have those moments of being in the zone. So that's when they've turned their attention to meditation because they've realised that that's the source, that's the power point. So zone in psychology, the flow and zone are the same thing, is, and I quote, the intense experimental involvement in moment-to-moment activity, which can be physical or mental. Attention is fully invested in the task at hand and the person functions at his or her fullest capacity. So on the side of the slide, you can see some pictures. And all of these pictures help people to get into their zone, into their mojo state. So artists, the surfer, only the surfer knows the feeling. It's a famous quote. So it's those spaces that we want to plug into more. And we've got the ability to do that, not necessarily with the activity as well. We can have that in our everyday, at every moment, just being present. So I'm going to ask you one moment where you have felt a deep stillness or connection to something bigger than yourself. So just for a moment, think about one space that you have felt a connection to something. It's been probably quite profound for yourself personally. I'll give you an example. When I was traveling at a young age, I was in Greece and they have siestas, so we work at night time, and I was walking home after a night's work. And there was a moment when I looked up in the sky and it was literally like that picture where there was a huge mass of stars and it was just seeing the galaxy. And for some strange reason, I still don't know why, it has stayed with me. It's just been a space of complete awe. And I don't know how long I was there for. It could have been 1 minute, it could have been 10. But that space of feeling in my zone. So think of something that you have felt in your time. And if you'd like to share, you're very welcome to. And the other one I wanted to ask you to do is write down 3 times in your day where you feel naturally relaxed, at ease, still or calm. Now I'll give you another example. For me, After school, we have after school activities. I'm the taxi driver for my 3 kids, and I'm running here, there and everywhere. Lots of noise, lots of kids. And I come home and I drive into the carport. They pile out of the car and I just go, oh. It's just a complete moment for me of stillness, of calm, and I plug in instantly. It is easy, natural space of calm and stillness. So you could probably think of 3 in your day. Another one for me is in the shower.
Hiding from the children again, maybe?
Quite possibly, Ash. Yeah, you're right. Now, the reason why I want you to remember this is because I want you to know that they're your natural states. It happens in your day all the time, but it's just that we often push it past it, or we're in such a rush we overlook it. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is if you can remember that in times of stress. So for instance, let's bring back the scenario of the lady lying or man lying in his bed and he's overthinking and he can't stop the mind. If the mind is going to work, which it is, if it's going to, have thoughts, then one of the best ways to reconnect again is to remember a feeling. So remembering the feeling that you felt in your life where you've plugged in very naturally is quite powerful. So maybe when you wake at 2 o'clock in the morning, try it next time, as well as your deep breathing. So here's the next part, which is learning how to relax at will. And we've got the power of the breath. Now, it is a known fact that the emphasis is on the breath, learning how to use your breath correctly, it moves from the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, so the primal part of our brain, to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calm and composed state, so the executive part of our brain. And using the power of our breath is also used in ancient times. With Chinese medicine, it's qi. With yogic practice, it's prana. And these are energy parts. So the meridians in our body are energy flow areas. And we haven't quite got to the research-based stuff with this yet, but I'm sure it will happen. But the breath works directly with the energy as well in our body. So there are quite a number of different breathing techniques that you can use to gain different benefits. So the breathing technique we're going to use today is the very simple one. It's just a deep breathing technique, diaphragmatic breathing. And it's to, 1, draw our attention back to the present moment, and 2, to literally help relax our body and our mind. So Ash has previously said that he was going to come up and be my little guinea pig. Thanks, Ash. And we're going to do this breathing technique. So if you are at home and, you've been here, there and everywhere, and you'd like to look at doing this just to relax yourself, you can either stand or sit, but you have your legs slightly apart. That's right, hip width apart. And when you're sitting, uncrossing your legs. Basically putting your hands down on the underneath your rib cage. Sorry, we've just lost everybody then. Underneath your rib cage, and it's your fingertips slightly touching. So this is just basically to bring your awareness down to where you'd like to have your breath go. Now, for those of you who have high or low blood pressure, please be aware that, if you feel dizzy at any point, you need to stay still and not continue with the exercise. So essentially, I'm going to talk and you will start doing the breathing, so you're not holding your breath. But what we're aiming to do is to bring the breath down into our lower abdomen, so down where our hands are, and you'll feel it there. And then as you breathe in up to the top, you breathe out from the top down to the lower abdomen again. So I'll keep explaining and you keep breathing. Now, the idea is not to feel tense doing this, it's to relax our shoulders, feel like you've settled. If you'd like to, you can close your eyes. And the deep breath starts down low, all the way up to the top of the chest, and then breathing out from the top down to the bottom. And ideally, we're breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So we'll just do that 2 or 3 times. And each time we do it, when you breathe out, begin to expel your air in your lungs completely. And what that will do is it will help with your next inhalation. It'll actually help it be easier. So each time we breathe out, we're emptying our lungs completely, even using the diaphragm slightly to expel the lungs, of the air in the lungs. And then as you inhale, it should be easier again. And as you exhale, remember to relax your shoulders, relax your body. So we'll just do that one more time. And when you're ready, just let your hands rest, let your shoulders relax. And just be aware of how you feel. Sometimes you might even feel a little bit of a tingling sensation in your hands or possibly even your feet. Okay, thank you, Ash, for your help.
Feel good, thanks.
All right, so that's just a really simple breathing technique that you can use anytime, anywhere. So anytime you're at the desk and you really do know that you're in a flight, fight, stress mode, you've got deadline, you've got 45 minutes to do 60 minutes of work, take the time to take a deep breath and relax, because where that puts you from your fight, flight into your executive functioning will help you progress through that deadline better. So that's just one simple way of being able to come back to the present moment. I'm just going to put that share screen on again. Okay, now the next one we've got, oh, it's not going to work again, is, it's just a little cartoon. I might have to get you to help me again, Ash, sorry. Little cartoon, it's basically a snowman sitting on a yoga mat. He'll come up in a minute. It says, now, the lady's saying to him, now relax, imagine your body slowly melting into the ground.
There he is.
Yeah, thanks Ash. All right, so we're going to look at work with where you're at. Obviously, I've mentioned this with meditation practices. It's not for everyone, I do understand that, but what you can do is work with where you are at. So in your day, and when your mind says to you that you don't have time, then this is the exact moment to stop and pause and be present. Take a deep breath, disengage from the overthinking mind and feel your body. So this is another one that I'm going to introduce to you in a minute, is one of the easiest ways to get out of your head is embodiment, is to feel your body, feel present and come back to that dog scene. Just be aware of your surrounds, be aware of how you feel, where are your feet. So again, when you're in the high stress mode, when you're in fight and flight, you're completely overwhelmed, you're overthinking, that's the exact time to feel still. My space is stillness. I really relate to being still. So embrace being present in your everyday. Take those moments, those natural moments, like me at the end of the day in my car. I now sit in my car for 15 minutes and I love it. And, you know, coming back from work, before you go into your home environment, take the moment to just be in your own space, connect back to you. So the trick is to notice these moments, not analyze them or overthink the moments. So for instance, I know when I first started to meditate and be mindful, I was actually thinking, I am drinking my water now. I am doing, and it was actually a thought process more than anything. I wasn't being present in its true sense of the form. I was thinking it, which is different. So it does take some practice, but you do have those natural moments, the stillness moments in your day that naturally happen for you to refer to. So keeping it simple. Okay, so this is a body scan. Oh, I'm kind of running a little bit out of time, but basically it's similar to the deep breathing exercise. You are using your breath, but you are being more aware of your body. So you're feeling your feet firmly on the ground, noticing where the weight of your body is, being aware of how you're standing, how you know, if you're slunched, you might like to lengthen up. And what it does is it draws your attention back to your physical self and your body. There's another Zen crossword. Okay, so those are our natural stillness moments that I mentioned. These are our conscious stillness moments. So these are what we're doing with intent. So the intention is that we are plugging in to that power source. Now, depending on your nature, you might start with the action meditation. So they're the things that we've already talked about: swimming, walking, climbing, whatever it is for you. So they're consciously awareness actions. Obviously, preferably to do it on your own. You can do it with other people as well, but if you're intentionally doing it to be more conscious, then it's better to do it on your own. These movements and action together focus on the breath. So there's that key again with the breath. So things like yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates, all of those have a combination of physical, mental, because you're focusing, and your breath. Obviously, the focus meditation is when we are still in silence and we're focusing our mind to be occupied on something to connect to that stillness space. So obviously the breath is something, again, that people use because it's always there. And the contemplative journaling and reading is just another space, but it is focused on things that are bigger than ourselves. So you're reading texts that are taking you out of your comfort zone and out of the box thinking. We want to expand and reconnect and remember. A lot of these things help us to remember more and reconnect to something bigger. And then we have the body scan, so that one that I mentioned before. And this is one of my favourite quotes, and it says, "I think 99 times and find nothing. I stop thinking, swim in silence, and the truth comes to me." That's Albert Einstein, and he was one of the, obviously one of the brightest minds on our planet, but he still recognised that this mind has a limited capacity. It's something beyond it, that inspired space that really gives some amazing insights. And we've got here too, and I believe that you may have these in your packs. So they're workplace wellness easy step stretches that you can do. I won't go through all of them, but basically the idea again is that we're not pushing or forcing, that we're focusing on relaxing and releasing. So when you feel that tension in your body, the aim is to feel that it releases. So there's those two there, and there's another one there. These are very quick outlines of things that you can do during your everyday. This will be available again after the presentation. But having fresh water instead of that second cup of coffee, doing other things to stimulate you instead of grabbing the extra sugar, those types of things, and making, moving your body more. Even if you need to get up off your desk and go and get the water, is always something you can implement easily. So just to recap, we've got from the health, physical health, the mental, emotional, physical and work health. They're all generally actionable doing things. They're from the outside in. But when we do them, we do get that sense of well-being. So joy, gratitude, fulfillment, satisfaction. And they're all things that we want. We want more of that. That's our mojo state. And we can also access that, plug back in to the spiritual, the power source, being present, being conscious. being still. It's just making that time to reconnect. So it is about balancing the action with awareness and being, and that's our optimal natural mojo state. So this is Eckhart Tolle. He's another person I follow quite a lot. And he says the awakening of the consciousness is the next evolutionary step for mankind. So let's take Google's flag. They're kind of going into this area. And I feel that, you know, humanity as a whole need to open their mind into, you know, embracing more of this in their life. So thank you for allowing me to share my out-of-the-box perspective and, you know, hoping that you get something from gaining a bit more of your mojo back and taking moments in your everyday to breathe, relax, and become more present. So remember that there's only one of you. So we want to look after yourself, and success happens when you happen. I'll just pop up too that the extra bits at the end, there's some references there. I've got an up and coming event. It's an introductory session on what I do here at the Success Hub in Sawtell, and some retreats planned for next year, hopefully with COVID being under wraps. And yeah, so I love feedback and I love collaboration. So if you feel that we'll be a good match, it'd be great to get in contact. But thank you. Thanks, Christina and Ash, for helping me with all the tech stuff.